Okay, here's an interesting take, and it's kind of about Egypt, but not really. But then again, it is. We'll get into this here a little bit. Here's a depiction, I believe, from Dendera, where you can see this sun disk here that's being worshipped on the right side by Thoth and by the rest of the procession of the zodiac, which equals stars and the planets on the left-hand side. And we've been through that through another video and how people have deciphered what this goes along with and how the zodiac runs through. In fact, the Dendera has the zodiac on it in a different place here. Hopefully you can discern here that everything is outlined or backlit with blue. So they're shining out separate of that, and also every hieroglyphic is done in blue. But if you look closely, you'll see that the people are done in blue sometimes. One, and then no, 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 two, no, three. So there's three people that are drawn in blue, and of course Thoth is over here on the other side, so you call it four. But also the other people have blue connotations to them. The one has the blue hair, the lion-headed goddess. Sekhmet has the blue hair on her also, and so does the later depiction on down the run. From that one, the one behind it, which is probably the farthest left that you can see that that has the crown of Upper Egypt, and that's a white crown, as we all know it. Whoop. That's a white crown, as we all know it. See if I can get that centered a little bit better for you. On the left. So this is like the white crown of Upper Egypt, but it's done in blue. And then here's the red crown, but it is done in red. And here's another depiction of the red crown. Let me get out of the way. You can see it done in red, as well as the sun disk above Sekhmet's head that's there. I've always thought whenever I look at this picture on the right, what you're seeing is the sun disk, and of course this is the eye of Horus, and we know this is the hours of the day and things that we have nowadays. But it looks, and it's supposed to be the sun in its cradle and all of that, but if you look at it, it really has a depiction of a lady's makeup mirror that they would use to put on their makeup around their eyes, both men and women. They utilize this blue color and the blue color of the sky, and of course Horus has the blue eyes, and we've talked about a bunch of videos how the earliest dynasty have these crystal blue-eyed statues that go along with it. But the thought in this article is that people in the ancients, in fact even up till the 1800s it says in some cases, people didn't even know that the color blue existed or could not see it, which is strange. Whenever you think, well, so that did it make it invisible like some type of camouflage, that when they put it on the background here, they look like they were just floating? Well, in a way, they look like they're in the sky. They have the sky as a background. If it was done with black background on it, you would easily discern that it's night, so this is day. And day, of course, has to do with Deus and the gods and everything, and the sun worship, everything that goes with it. Well, let's get into this. This is March 2021. Invisible blue, the color of the ancient people could not see, it says. Let's see if I can get that centered to where we can read along better. No. Yeah. Ish. We've all been told to be careful what we wish for, or that we'll only see what we look for. And some people, God, that's not even good centered there either. Better. Maybe some of you have heard past partners who claim that you took them for granted or made them invisible. Or friends do this thing where they made their friend invisible by no longer talking to him for a while because of some crap happening. The most conservative of us might deem these types of phrases as subjective and belonging to self-help books, but when we look back into history's evidence confirms that humans are fully capable of making physical appearances invisible if we do not concentrate on them. Even something as fundamental to reality as color The color blue in particular they're talking about here. But the way I understand it, we're talking about something in a camouflage, or something that if drawn in a certain way, you don't see it anymore. And that's can't be reality, can it? Let's go get into this. Different views see different hues. The human visual systems allows us to see a range of around 1 million colors, yet we really can't determine how differently we all perceive these colors. Blue is the color of the sky, bodies of water, probably a wall in your office, and a t-shirt, but a research paper discussed in Science Alert explained that until relatively recently in human history, nobody saw the color blue. I said to my mom whenever I was a little kid, and she understood it years later and said it back to me whenever my father and I were talking about another concept. I told him that the best baseball player that ever existed never got to play baseball. And he says, "What?" And I said, "It's just a weird thought I was having, Dad, but see if you have any weight to this, that the best person that ever could have hit home runs probably never even played baseball. If he did as a kid, he never followed up on it and got to become the person that he was. The best golfer that's ever been never got to play golf enough to become good at golf to do the thing, but he would have been the best." He said, "That's a strange way of looking at it, but I could see your perception there and everything onto it." And then my mom said what I had said before, and what I had said to her is that, what if we see colors slightly different than each other? I said this because I ran into a colorblind person and they talked about how certain greens looked blue and all these things to them. And I was like, well, they're just on a little different spectrum of color then, aren't they? But only certain ones, it seems. That's weird. But what if I see that color as blue, but you see it as green, but all of your life you've been told whenever you see that color, that's called blue. So you call green blue, but it's green. Do you understand what I'm saying? Most people catch it real easily. You see the color different than I do, but yet you've been told that that color is the same color. Therefore, you keep naming it that color so it doesn't seem any different to you. It's kind of one of those stoner mind freak weird things, but imagine what I said there, that people could be seeing on a little different spectrum that's going on there. And we only see a certain spectrum, and I learned a lot about this through saltwater dealing with fish and things like this. Here's this girl with these striking blue eyes. That we see from a range from red, and right down deepest red that it goes, it becomes infrared, which means we don't really see it anymore. Although we had an infrared light in one of our bathrooms once, and when we turned it on, it's just a red light, and you go, well, I can see it. It contains a spectrum that you're not seeing whenever it goes on too. But the spectrum goes through red, orange, yellow, right in the center there, which is like our sun looks to our eyes, but it contains the full spectrum, by the way. And at yellow, then yellow green to blue, and then it starts to get to purple, and then that's the end of it too. But it keeps going there, by the way. And the strange thing I found in electronics and things that go along with it, that spectrum goes further than that, and infra x-rays and so on. And so you have things that are much past the spectrum that we visually see in one way and the other that's there. But a weird thing is, blue creatures, blue flowers, blue fish, blue anything is about the rarest color that there possibly could be on the planet. There are very few blue birds. I remember having a coloring book while we were driving across country to go look at ancient Wild West stuff from my father and going on a trip and everything that I talked about in other videos, and having this coloring book and it's different birds, and we had a super pack of colors. I don't know, it was 64 or maybe the one that was lower in numbers, 32 or whatever they had below that, 16 and then 8, wasn't it, and so on, and then just primaries. But I'm coloring in these birds and wondering what color they are, and of course there's this bluebird type of bird there, and I'm going to color it all in blue. And my dad said, yeah, but the females are gray. And I said, well, doesn't that suck? And my mom looked over, and it was one of those moments where you have that male-female thing kind of go on. And my dad just explained real quick, and I remember this always. He said, in the bird world, men get to be pretty. So that's why the peacock is the male, and he has the big old thing going on, and cardinals that are bright red, that's the male. The female looks kind of gray and so on. And I go, well, that sucks, because females look real pretty, da-da-da, and everything. And then, well, that sure iced that over and made it turn into a good thing out of nothing. But I've thought since then, that there's very few fish. Like Finding Nemo, you have Dory, right? And she's a blue fish, but other people say, I want a blue fish. How many blue fish are there? Well, there's some damsels that are blue and quite mean, all the way to the point of a turquoise or a lime color. They call it green chromis, but there are very few fish that are blue. There are fish that have some blue in them, a blue stripe, a blue line in their tail, blue in their fins, blue spots, so on like that. But as far as being blue all out, it doesn't happen too much. You'll find certain creatures have camouflages that go along with things. Butterflies are surely not trying to be inconspicuous, but there are blue morpho butterflies have a special blue in them. It's used in actual dollar bills and so on, but it has a weird refractive product with it, and it tries to trap all the other colors but blue, and that's the reason it is just so vibrant. They found a color that's like this and have been able to falsely make this color now. But before, there was a color called Egyptian blue. There's cobalt blues and so on. Recently, I did a video about ancient copper mining and the blue that's in that, and then the wreck of the Illabruian, which may contain some copper from the New World over here in the Michigan mines all the way across here, and that might be one of the major sources for the Bronze Age copper that's there, because its purity only lines up to that place. But in that, they have all these little pucks of blue, and it's glass. So they have colored glass, and like blue glass, like you think of blue glass like beer bottles and certain types of blue glass, and people in antiques, and they collect blue glass and so on. But they're blue glass they have from way back when. This UV blue glass that's got cobalt in it, or a copper sulfate form, and they're slightly different than each other, and really to your eyes don't look too much different, but yeah, there's a slight difference in their blueness to each other. More of a royal blue and more of a rich blue, if you will. We can discern hundreds of colors of just blue, and we've even named quite a few of them, from things like soft cornflower blue and powder blue, all the way through royal blues and deep indigos and such. But what they're saying, that is to say, blue didn't exist, or not in the way we think of it today. This paper that they've got, there is some smart play on words here. Either Kevin Loria reported for Business Insider back in 2015 that the evidence for people not seeing blue dates all the way back to the 1800s. So somewhere in the 1800s, there was still a lack of discernible words for blue, is what they're saying. Not that people couldn't have necessarily seen it, but they're going on the whole spectrum, not to play on words, of the idea of could they even see blue. For a lot of old tales of people that we knew had blue eyes, they described them as being gray eyes, or the color of the ocean. But then in other instances, they're naming those other colors that are in the ocean as being wine type of colored and so on. And wine is not, it's red, or it's slightly greenish white. It's not Deep blue, that's for sure, and you wouldn't say that. But, we're not talking about the dress here. This is something that came out a couple years ago, but I want you to look at this dress and tell me what you think. Before we move on, many of you will be drifting to the 2015 internet sensation, The Dress. Let's get that out of the way. Hundreds of millions of viewers disagreed over whether the colored bands of the following dress were black and blue or white and gold. This phenomenon revealed differences in human color perceptions and is not the same thing as the claim that the color blue never existed in history. This is more like what I'm talking about when I was talking to my mom and stuff, but then this is actually a type of optical illusion almost, in the fact of what colors are around it that help you out, whether there's this stark white background in the background here, and whether this looks like to be a golden brown type color or turns to a black, whether this is a white reflecting a powder lightish blue color, or if it's actually a deep royal blue and black. The more you look at this, the more it might change here as we talk about it here, but that's not the same claim as to say, well, blue never existed in history. Well, I shouldn't have clicked on the picture there, because now we're having a bit of an issue. There we go. So again, you see lots of blue, even not just in this article here, on all types of ads. It's real popular, blue jeans. Comes from a French word, and it actually has something to do with viewing and the way things look in situations. So that's not strange. But then view, if you think of the word itself, has to do with a vista or a look. And so if you're looking during the day and you see this bright sky, it's something we almost omit. The ocean is extremely blue in certain places, like the Caribbean. You can find turquoise blue places, and then just this super blue that's in areas like that. And what people don't realize is that the sunlight, whenever it cuts through the water there, is all fractionated up. And all the red light has short wavelengths of light, and it gets all used up. But blue light has a penetrating wavelength of light, and that's the reason the ocean's blue. In fact, during the day, while there's sunlight scattered all over, that's the reason the sky's blue. If conditions were slightly different, we wouldn't see things the way we would. In the way of the ancients, it was extremely strange that everything disappears during the day, but it reveals itself during the night. And so, in a way of secret form, they talked about what was going on during the day in the background that no one knew about. What color is this dress? Put down in the comments what you think it is. Somebody's going to put that on there, and other people's will like or dislike it. We'll choose one. Is this white and gold, bronzy colored trim? Or is this blue and black? Or is it blue and gold? Now that we get down here, does it look any different to you than what you thought just a second ago? How about if we get here to the next one, where it's actually a video about the dress and what people think that it is. What color is that dress over there on the right? Is that the same dress? It's the exact same picture. It's just looking at it from a little bit back or a little bit closer to it. Now you can see all of that drowned out background of light that's going on there. So now what color is that dress? An ancient absence of the color blue. The story of blue being invisible in history begins in 1858 when William Gladstone, who later became Chancellor of the Exchequer, then Prime Minister of Great Britain, read Homer's The Odyssey. Gladstone noticed that Homer described the sea color as wine dark, leading him to ask the question, why not deep blue? Gladstone investigated this curiosity and counted the color references in the Odyssey, finding that while black was mentioned almost 200 times, or darkness, and white about 100 times, blue did not appear once. Apparently there were references that are meant to mean that, but yet straightforward as that, it's not really mentioned. Broadening his research, then he determined that blue didn't exist anywhere in the Greek writing. Nowhere. That the times that whenever they should have used the word blue, they used descriptives and said he had eyes like the ocean, or he had this, that, and the other, or eyes like the sky. Zeus is lightning god, da-da-da, and fiery, and the eyes like the sky, and so on like that. Well, what color is that? It's like the sky. So is the name for it sky? Well, no, it's blue. What color is the blue? The sky. Well, that's the color of day. Day's the color of the gods. It all starts to go together a little bit here, but German Jewish philosopher and philologist Lazarus Geiger passionately followed up on Gladstone's observations and analyzed ancient Icelandic sagas, the Quran, Hindu, Chinese, folklore, Arabic, and ancient Hebrew versions of the Bible. His studies discovered that blue was never mentioned once in any of these cultures, and he wrote, "These hymns of more than 10,000 lines are brimming with descriptions of the heavens. Scarcely any subject is evoked more frequently. The sun and reddening dawn's play of color, day and night, cloud and lightning, the air and ether, all of these unfold before us again and again, but there is one thing that no one would ever learn from these ancient songs, and that is the sky that is blue." Isn't that kind of strange somewhat? Here's a look at an Egyptian blue that's derived from cobalt, which actually has to do with copper, sulfates, and so on too. You can see it kind of blistered up on here. What do they say about it here? Paint on canvas and plywood, which is Lacorde blue. Okay, this is the French Lacorde blue, and it's what was used in all the famous blue paintings and so on. There have been times in history where blue has become real famous. On French wallpapers and everything, it's just all blue and white. Instead of doing any other colors or black and white and everything was done blue and white. In fact, China, not the country, but the plates and the dishware and things, very famous where they're using this blue. Is it doing it again to me? Where they keep using this blue. And it's kind of symbolic, but also you'd have to say, well, how could these people have not seen it if they're using it? In fact, if you're looking at this Egyptian thing, as I go back down here and try to center on it again for you, sorry, how could they have not seen it? And how could it not represent day itself? Right? So, stark blue eyes. Gorgeous. Anyhow, so here's that dress again. And so when you look at it from up here, what it looks like, and then you get down here and it starts to be a little bit more questionable. In fact, you look at it in that other picture, and quite often people go two different ways right there. So here's that Lacorde blue. Was the color blue really invisible to the ancients? Not having words for blue, scientists have to consider that maybe ancient people didn't see that color, thus not having descriptors for it. Were ancient people's eyes different from ours? Why didn't people see blue? There's this thought whenever I was a kid, one guy saying something about this, and also that went along with my idea of what if people see different colors and everything, that we've had a shift in our perception of colors over the whole spectrum, and that we now see blue, and so by that effect, before we couldn't see as wide of a spectrum. Before, our spectrum was a little bit more pinched down and a little bit more red, and we actually saw a little more infrared colors than we do now. Other people believe that back in time we perhaps had less color vision and less color cone perceptors in our eyes in situations, and I'm talking about now hundreds of thousands of years ago, that we would have seen things more like dogs, where we see it in a few different colors and shades of gray and red and this, that, and the other stand out, and that's about it. But this is just thoughts going on, because when we take any primate's vision and anything goes on, it seems like they have pretty good vision in that spectrum, in the full thing. But if we could just see in a little bit more spectrum, it would be real neat. And you think it would be real great to be able to see x-rays and crap like that in Superman or something, but if that was going on right now, you wouldn't be able to visually see what we're seeing. It's actually the omission of the other colors and the other spectrums that actually give us the ability to see as clarity that we do, and in all the spectrum and colors that we do. Follow me? So Greek writing, though, didn't have it in there. Even ancient hymns, the Bible doesn't appear to have it in there, and of course everybody creeps on that one too and everything. So were ancient people's eyes different from ours? They didn't see blue? Is that the way it was? It's not known exactly what's going through Homer's mind when he described the wine dark sea, but ancient people definitely had the same optical biology and capability to see blue that we do today. But do we really not see things if we don't have words for them? The answer is no, because there's no blue as a category of color. In the way that we define it, the color wasn't distinguished from green. A lot of times it's green. In fact, the ocean, actually deep in the ocean and everything, has like a blue-green color backing it up, instead of like something like Caribbean thin water and seeing something that looks very sky blue, or right? You can see that. You go to certain places on the planet, and that same water, depending on phytoplankton and different colors in the background and so on, will look more green or more blue. In fact, that color seems to be the combination that gives us a little bit of trouble. And indeed, with color blindness, it's either blue-green messed up or there's a red version, right? So, but to say that there's no blue and no this, that, and the other, and so on, where we really didn't, you talk about how rare the color blue is. Let's talk about how rare the color orange is. For we really didn't have a way of describing orange. And in fact, when we found oranges, so awestruck by it we were that we just called it, there we go, that name gets stuck on that fruit. And when everybody says orange, they know what we're talking about. But nowadays we have a plethora of colors that we talk about. Like, I can say something like peach, but again, we're talking about a fruit, aren't we? Where we can take a color and we can say cherry red, and you know what I'm talking about, and it's a fruit again. Apple red, apple green. It's real limeish kind of colored. It's not forest green, it's not jade green, it's not Kelly green, it's not, man, you could go with a lot of different colors of each version of these type of things, but it's not that we didn't see them. Really, once you saw the spectrum laid out on the ground, it's easy to see that yellow, whenever it goes left on the spectrum, usually when you're looking at it, goes yellow to orange and then red. And there's yellow and red are primary colors, and the extra guy, which you learn in school about everything, is orange in between that. And if you mix primary colors that are made certain ways, yellow and red make orange. A lot of these things were derived of words describing sunsets, where you could find pinks and peach type of colors and orange. And dawn is seen as orange too, but only for a short period of time. And then all of a sudden it's the day. We don't get the same thing in sunsets. Rarely do we have a sunrise that has colors in any way like a sunset looks. And it's doing the same thing, isn't it? But it isn't, in the way it's going around. But let's just continue. The blur of blue and green. Searching to discover when blue started to appear in language as a color of its own right, Guyver discovered a repeated pattern all over the world. Every language first had words for black and white, representing darkness and light. Soon after, people used a word for red, the color of blood and wine and such. The colors appear to be language appear in language were then yellow and then green, and the last color to appear in every language across the globe was blue. Well, I wonder where you're going to fit orange into there. Is it doing it again? Wonder where you're going to fit orange into there whenever you have this type of thing, because orange also uh, is quite rare. Not only just, I mean, hey, the picture is showing oranges and orangey gold colors and so on. And a lot of people, you'd say golden or brass colors or all these different things could be considered as being oranges in some way. Whenever you're a kid and you use colors out of a coloring book to try to make something look like gold, sometimes you use just a yellow. I tried to find the one that was a real gold color so it actually looked like gold, but really a lot of that was real brown with little metal flakes in it, wasn't it? For a lot of times, if you used an orange type of color, that would signify brass. Could easily cover gold too, couldn't it? There's that dress again. I'm sorry this keeps happening. I'm almost to the point of just redoing the whole video because it's made me do this 3 times. Luckily, we've been talking whenever that's going on, and it doesn't really matter so much. So this blur of blue and green around the globe. In 2006, Jules Davidoff, a psychologist from Goldsmith University of London, conducted a research project with members of the Himba tribe from Namibia, whose language neither has a word for blue nor distinguishes between green and blue. According to a BBC documentary which has since been accused of over-dramatizing the results, of course, members of the tribe were tested to find out if they could actually see blue or not by showing them a special pattern, a circle with 11 green squares and 1 blue square. These primitive people here on your left, and then to the right you're seeing this square. Now what's strange about showing this is this same type of square, I know, they put a dot in the center of the paper right here, and they do this same situation, and you stare at that dot and stare at that dot and stare at that dot for like a minute without taking your eyes away, and then all of a sudden you look at white paper, and when you look at white paper you can't see the blue dot that's there, but it runs all around the paper as you're trying to chase it with your eyes, and you can see it but never look at it. There's another version of this where one's missing, and then whenever you do it, it's not missing anymore because you get that reflective quality, although it's done in a different color to show up blue. There are a lot of optical illusions like this where you stare for a while and it'll impregnate on your eyes to where when you switch and just stare at white and don't move around a bunch, things will change. One famous one is this landscape that you can see, and they've made it out of weird colors, and you stare at that, and then all of a sudden they flip it at another picture, and then it comes to life and looks 3D. Another one that's famous is the American flag, where it's red, white, and blue, but instead it's like orange, black, and green or something. But when you stare at it for a long time and then take your eyes away from it and stare at the white wall, all of a sudden you see red, white, and blue. So, while it's obvious to us, most of the Himba tribe members had more difficulty in telling Davidoff which of the squares was that different color, which is easy to discern, but these participants who noticed a different look much longer and made more mistakes than you and I, who can quickly spot the blue square. Not only did the experiment seem to confirm the language had effect on what we perceive, it also revealed that the Himba language had many more descriptive words, terms, and concepts for types of green than in English. Well, man, we can get lime green and all kinds of things out of that, but then if you're taking and incorporating blue and colors of blue into it, are you describing the sky as blue? It's looking like eventually you get to a point of hue and pigment, and if it's darker, it's considered to be off in the green thing, but something as light as the sky would almost be considered a different color totally. It's a weird way to look at it, but without a word for a particular color, there's no way of identifying it as, oh my God. Without having a particular name for a certain color, there's no way of identifying it out of the myriad of names that you could be given. There's that damn dress again. Ooh, that's a blue color. You're going to see some down here too that's real blue too. So, without a word for a particular color, there's no way of identifying it as different to the others close to it, and it's perceived as a shade of another color. So, before blue became defined with a word, humans saw blue things as being shades of green. That's what this thought is. See what you think about this, though. You can discover more about how language shapes our ability to detect color in Kevin Lauria's article, The Business Insider, in this fascinating Radiolab episode, which inspired his feature. So, here again, somebody was talking about something else and inspired him to write this article that perhaps this was the way it really went. What about the creation of the color blue? Well, ancient Egyptian society was supposedly the first to adopt a word for the color blue because they were the first culture to produce blue dyes. The famous color blue or Egyptian blue appears in artwork such as the tombs of Mereruka from the Old Kingdom, 2600 to 2100 BC, and is almost exactly the same blue as was found in a coffin dating from the Greco-Roman period 330 BC to 400 AD, confirming well-developed and standardized production systems being passed over 2,000 years. In my other videos, too, I've talked about how they made another blue, but they made another green, but over time that green turned blue. So you see these reeds in these plants, and all of a sudden they look kind of blue, but that's just like the corrosion on your battery where it turns like this bluish aqua turquoise color instead of the color it was supposed to be at once. So it has to do with copper changing over and so on. So they developed it. So here's a bucket or a pot full of Egyptian blue that's been derived out of things and concentrated and then chipped up, and it's going to be able to be used for coloring. This is a cup containing Egyptian blue pigment from Pompeii itself. Egyptian blue, also known as calcium copper silicate, or CaCuSi 4010, or cuprovitate, is considered to be the first synthetic pigment ever developed. And yeah, this was found in Pompeii's ruins, so of course they had it to make their stuff out of. And this is another way we can see vast amount of trade going between people and stuff. The ancient Sumerians said that the gods were blue and gold, and they were made of lapis lazuli and gold and so on. Strange that we find the Egyptians embracing that same idea and concept, and they're blue and gold. And you can look at King Tut's mask and see that they made him into a gold with lapis lazuli. That lapis lazuli comes from Afghanistan. And they would have gotten rocks like this, which really look as gray as any rock in here until they get it wet, and then all of a sudden it's bluer than this. Only if it's polished does it really keep that color and not get dusty looking and kind of fade. Blue came to represent the river Nile, the sky, and later the universe itself, creation, and fertility. So it's symbolically used quite a few ways. The only natural source of blue was the rare and expensive mineral lapis lazuli, which was mined in what is now Afghanistan. Vitruvius, the first century Roman architect and writer, said that sand, copper from a mineral such as azurite or malachite green, and natron, a naturally occurring mixture of sodium compounds, including sodium carbonate, were the ingredients that were used to make this blue color. So again, they're using natron for all types of things, not only just desiccating a mummy. What else are we blind to? Well, to think that we didn't see blue because we didn't have a word for it makes one ask, what might we be looking for it every day or night, right under our noses, that we can't see because we don't have a word for it? Well, ironically, one answer to this question is more blue. In 2017, Oregon State University chemist Mas Sabranian discovered Yelnamen blue, named after the elements yttrium, indium, and magnesium. During the experimentation with materials for electronic applications, according to the OSU press release, the beautiful blue was discovered through a chemistry lab accident back in 2009, is now going into the marketplace. It was serendipity, actually, a happy accident discovered, he said in the paper. And look at how rich blue this color is. It's just striking. So we talked about blue. We've even talked recently, even just this year, about purple and how the ancient dye that they made from purple in the Phoenician color of royalty was sometimes blue and sometimes all the way to a magenta color of red and shades in between, and they had to get that crap right due to the way they were doing it. And you could see variations on a theme. In fact, I've still got a video pulled up where I didn't do it back then because I felt like I was beating a dead horse if I go into it too much. But there's this guy that recreated it, and you can see all the colors he's got in front of him that would go from lavender and all kinds of weird fish and lure colors. While its new blue looks similar to a Lacour blue, which was shown earlier, in cobalt blue, its properties are stronger and more durable, according to Samurai, and formed a unique crystal structure that allows the manganese ions to absorb red and green wavelengths of the light. The pigment only reflects blue, so this is very much like a blue morpho butterfly. This deep, vibrant blue is so durable and its compounds so stable, even in oil and in water, that the new pigment's versatility has a variety of commercial applications in paints. For example, to keep buildings cool by reflecting infrared light. In keeping with our requirements for sustainability, none of the new blue pigment's ingredients are toxic, according to the OSU press release. So we might start seeing a whole lot of blue buildings. Well, there's this concept, check this one out, that you can put it on blue and then you can put white on top of it and it'll look white to your eyes, but if any infrared is making it in past the white, it's reflected back by the blue. So you don't necessarily have to have a blue building or a blue car. Wonder if they put that on two different cars and they had one car that was painted black. Like you can do a black car and a white car, and you can get, well, here in the Texas heat, you can get a 30-degree difference maybe on a real good Texas summer day. But if you were to do it with the blue color, wonder if that even beats the white enough to be worth it. Strange. What chemistry is coming up to do, you know? The ancient chemistry of the Comedans, the Egyptians, as we call them, who came up with an Egyptian blue that really was, until a modern day, sets a standard. This is starting to set a new standard, but it's only that color. Now, I'm sure you can mix it with darker pigments and then get darker. I don't know if you can get lighter much out of it by mixing whites into it or chalks and types of things, but quite interesting. They've come up with this new color by accident again. Makes you think of playing around with a chemistry set in some way in ancient Egypt gave all kinds of rise to all types of things. Well, we find in the magicians' journals that was going in places from the Wayback Machine, whenever people were shamanistic and were driving certain things from plants who they found over time worked in certain ways. And they would even put it into their pigments and then ripe it onto people and stuff and put this special markings on you, but the markings had the medicine in it. Isn't that wicked? I could go right now and show you, but if you looked up blue-eyed Egyptians, you're going to see a bunch of crystal blue-eyed statues that are from the earliest dynasties. But if you kept looking down, you'll find this gray photo with these eyes that are glowing at you. What is that? Somebody has found out that a lot of these statues, much like the Greek statues we found out and talked about last year, were all painted in ancient times. So they didn't look like the thing in the ivory that we think of the way that they look. Alabaster statues, they were all painted. But in that fact, they see blue eyes in all the Egyptian statues, all these old ones they went into. In fact, King Tut's great-grandmother, Thuya, was shown as having this cotton type or fabric in her eyes that had this blotch of paint onto it, supposed to recreate her eyes looking into the afterlife and so on. And they even talk about this thing, but when this guy flashed across with this blue light, infra blue light, it's like a black light, makes it show up. And it made it show up on all these different statues and stuff. And so Egyptian blue has this other category with it that's reflective in a way. It's weird, like whenever you go to a club or something and they put a stamp on your arm and then you put it under that blue light and it glows, but you can't see it really other than that. It has this effect like that. And they found that they can take that blue and make thin sheets of it, thousands of a human hair thin, and then use it for all different types of applications in electronics and all kinds of ways that they're talking about doing now.